One, two, one, two. What up, party people? I'm so glad you're here checking out the Beats, Times, in Life Beat Goes On podcast. I'm your host, DJ Alias. Let's find some connections.
Are these the ancient sources of music we hear in America today?
This podcast is about making connections. So let's connect the dots between the sonic, the thematic, and the performance practices of black music that have been going on for generations.
How many instruments are used in Africa? The heartbeat of African music is always the drum. The drum.
Let's celebrate ourselves, let's celebrate our culture,
The drum.
and show how much we love this music. Let's go! In 1900, James Weldon Johnson wrote, "Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod," in the Black National Anthem, for a reason. Black music is the direct reflection of a life filled with rough roads and scarred backs. It can be sad and dark, joyful and free, uplifting and depressing. It's also trance-inducing and full of layers to listen and dance to. On each episode, we will feature two artists who seemingly unconnected, but through the lens of black music DNA, the theme, the sonics, the performance practice elements, we can uncover the connections that lie within this music. These connections help build musical continuity through generations. Our ancestors called it Sankofa. It means to take what is useful from the past and bring it to light for future generations to learn from and make positive progress. This continuity helps us to pass down the beauty and majesty of black music to our kids. We cannot just sit back and say, kids' music these days. We have to empower and equip our kids with the skills to go out and create music with these foundational elements and to speak with clarity and passion about its importance. As I was researching for this episode, I came across this quote. It so happens that it comes from the homepage of Linden, Texas, the birthplace of one of our focus artists today, T-Bone Walker. I thought it was fitting for what we're trying to accomplish with this show as a whole. Quote, "As time passes and memories diminish, the significance of an event may recede into oblivion. It is the historian who uncovers it." So let's do some uncovering. I refuse to let our musical memories fade into oblivion. It's not an option. I am a DJ and a record collector, and I am doing this show so that the music never recedes away, so that no tide can ever wash it away. The beat will always go on. So today, let's begin with themes. Themes that run consistent throughout black music. And today's theme is the daily grind of being black in America. So let's begin with two artists. Aaron Thibodeau, T-Bone Walker versus Christopher Wallace, a.k.a. the Notorious B.I.G., a.k.a. Biggie Smalls, a.k.a. Biggie, a.k.a. Big Papa, a.k.a. Brooklyn's Finest. You know the rest. Let's start with Aaron T-Bone Walker. Aaron Thibodeau T-Bone Walker was born in 1910 in Linden, Texas. Linden, Texas is a quintessential rural American town. About 3.5 miles in total, and the population sits around 2,000 as of 2010 census. A tiny place that not many people have heard of, where the blues was entrenched in the tradition. T-Bone grew up in a family of musicians. His mother and father played in local string bands with rural blues legend Blind Lemon Jefferson. To discuss the importance of Blind Lemon Jefferson, let's just say Blind Lemon Jefferson was Michael Jordan of blues musicians in the late 1920s. He and other legends like Huddy Ledbetter used to travel together, and Lightning Hopkins and Josh White all came up under Lemon Jefferson. His relationship with Blind Lemon Jefferson led T-Bone to being Blind Lemon Jefferson's protege and guide. After cutting his teeth under Blind Lemon Jefferson and the Les Height Orchestra, he set out on his own and started innovating techniques on something called an electric guitar, which was brand new at the time, and creating songs and styles that have influenced the whole of Western music, specifically the electric guitar solo. Check these out. Amazing musicianship in all those solos. However, without T-Bone Walker, there would be no electric guitar solo. He played and presented the guitar with virtuosic technique, high levels of charisma, originality, and flair. Before T-Bone, the guitar was a rhythm instrument. used to play chords along with the bass and the drum. No solos. Is that something your brain can even comprehend? No electric guitar solos, just playing root chords along with the rhythm section? So from now on, when someone asks you, who taught you how to solo on guitar? You should reply, T-Bone taught me, because he is the originator of that technique. Something we look forward to, something that is synonymous with rock, jazz, blues now. So thank you, T-Bone, for that guitar solo. Thank you for changing music forever and helping to form one of our most familiar and iconic musical expressions, the electric guitar solo. T-Bone was copied by, well, basically anyone who plays an amplified guitar now. He did it first, but then you have Hendrix, Clapton, Barry, B.B. King. They all admit to copying T-Bone. You think Hendrix was the first person to play guitar with his teeth? Nope, that was T-Bone. He took that from T-Bone. B.B. King said specifically he got an electric guitar because of T-Bone Walker. So let's listen to a few clips of this amazing innovator showing us what an electric guitar can sound like. Thank you, T-Bone, for being one of the first to give us this amazing styles on the guitar. Thank you, T-Bone, for showing us and being one of the first people to play electric guitar solos, taking us into the future, which is electric guitar is one of the most popular, if not the most popular instrument in popular music at this time. So if it wasn't for T-Bone, you wouldn't be rocking out the guitars like that. Let's move forward several decades in time and get some background on the crook from the brook, the notorious B.I.G. Biggie Smalls, Christopher Wallace, was born May 21st, 1972 in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He grew up with working-class parents. Music was important to the family, but they weren't musicians like T-Bone Walker's family. Walker grew up in a small rural town. Biggie spent his formative years in one of the largest cultural centers on earth, New York City. He began dealing drugs around 12 and was arrested 7 times in 25 years. Is this really what he wanted to do? Is a drug dealer what he wanted to be? Or did surroundings and circumstance dictate this? This is the either you slang crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot era. So he felt like he didn't have any other options. Talib Kweli says on the manifesto, niggas don't sell crack because they want to see black smoke. Niggas sell crack because they broke. That was the name of the game. I mean, he had a daughter to feed. His teenage years, unlike T-Bone's, were spent on the streets of Brooklyn, sunk in the seat, tinted with heat, beats bumping. That's Nas. He wasn't touring with world-class musicians like T-Bone Walker was. As a musician, battling MCs on Brooklyn streets was what came natural to him, and he easily destroyed anyone who was foolish enough to step to the mic. Listen to this classic clip of Biggie in a freestyle battle on Fulton Street in Brooklyn. Pretty amazing, right? There's clearly a live DJ cutting breaks out on the street and Biggie terrorizing a lower level MC with everything he's got. This is hip hop in its purest form. Most people couldn't write lyrics this dope with all the time in the world and DJ Premier giving them tips. Biggie got his big break from Mr. C when he brought a demo tape he and Big recorded to the offices of the then brand new Bad Boy Records. This new label was run by Sean Puffy Combs, who had just been fired as an A&R for Uptown Records. The first 2 Bad Boy releases were Flavor in Your Ear by Craig Mack, followed shortly thereafter by Ready to Die by the Notorious B.I.G. The Notorious B.I.G., Biggie, instantly became a rap god and on his way to superstardom. With only 2 albums, some hip-hop heads say he's the greatest MC that's ever lived. Is he the greatest MC that ever lived? Now that is a podcast I like to do as well, although it may get too emotional for me, so I digress. So let's think about Linden, Texas versus Brooklyn, New York. Linden is a small rural town with a population in the thousands. Brooklyn, on its own, without the rest of New York City, is the 3rd largest city in America. Do you think that growing up in Linden, Texas, during the Great Migration as a rural blues musician, would create a different outlook on life as a black man in America versus growing up in Brooklyn as a trapper to a rapper? These two men would seemingly have wildly different stories to tell, right? So let's examine the lyrics and themes both artists created and see, what has this struggle done to them from 1942 to 1994? Has anything changed? Are we hearing the same stories? Has the struggle of being black in America changed? I think that we might find that less has changed than we think. Our tracks for analysis are Mean Old World by T-Bone Walker, released in 1942, and Everyday Struggle by the Notorious B.I.G., released in 1994. Thematically, both songs give us a glimpse into the mind of two musical innovators who became giants in both of their respective styles. Even though they were loved by millions, revered by their fellow musicians, and eventually became wealthy, that wasn't enough to help them build self-love and not let the everyday struggle hold them back. T-Bone Walker, living in a world surrounded by Jim Crow laws that denied his humanity. Amidst all this, he was able to become a master innovator on electric guitar and influence every guitar legend that ever lived. He was revered by his peers and was, by all accounts, on top of his field. Listen to the opening of Mean Old World. It's 2 minutes and 22 seconds of rock and roll blues foundation. In a hip-hop realm, I'd say this is like hearing Rakim for the first time. I mean, complete game changer. Rhythmically, technically, he's doing things no one has done. His tone was percussive yet supple and smooth. Sonically, it's raw, untouched blues, but lush harmonic colors adorn each measure. Amazing, right? Clearly, T-Bone Walker stood out among his peers, and his playing was admired and copied by many. And after this 2-minute guitar solo where he's laying the sonic foundation of what lead guitar would become, electric blues and rock and roll, he writes lyrics like this.
Yes, I drink to keep from worrying. Mama, I smile to keep from crying. Yes, I drink to keep from worrying. Mama, I smile to keep from crying. That's to keep the public from knowing just what I have on my mind.
Okay, now listen to Biggie give you a similar theme, but 50 years later. Here we go.
But they don't know about the stress-filled day. Baby on the way, mad bills to pay. That's why you drink Tanqueray, so you can reminisce and wish you wasn't living so devilish. Shit, I remember.
There's two men on top of their fields, T-Bone Walker and Biggie. T-Bone Walker writes, yes, I drink to keep from worrying, and mama, I smile to keep from crying. And then 50 years later, Biggie writes, they don't know about your stress-filled day, baby on the way, mad bills to pay, that's why you drink Tanqueray. These songs, Mean Old World and Everyday Struggle, were written 52 years apart. T-Bone Walker in Linden, Texas, Biggie in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Yet their lives seem to have similar issues going on. Stresses of life pushing him to drink is the obvious, but that's prevalent in all cultures. What makes this unique to the black experience is the generational effect of white supremacy on our progress, opportunities, self-fulfillment, and personal expectations. Now, I'm not a blame whitey kind of dude, but let's look at it this way. If you're running a race and everyone else in the race has healthy legs and you have a pulled hamstring, I think for the most part, you know, the person with the pulled hamstring is not going to win, right? For the most part, healthy legs win. Sure, sometimes a really, really strong elite person can win with an injury, can win with the depression, can win in no matter what. Folks like Oprah, LeBron, right? They stand out. They come on top. But that's not everyone. They're special. For the most part, healthy legs win. Freedom wins. People who have the opportunities win, right? Generations of black people have been running with the tweaked hammy. Even Biggie and T-Bone Walker. I mean, listen to what they think about themselves.
I don't wanna live no more. Sometimes I hear death knocking at my front door. I'm living every day like a hustle. Another drug to juggle. Another day, another struggle. I don't wanna live no more. Sometimes I hear death knocking at my front door. I'm living every day like a hustle. Another drug to juggle. Another day, another struggle.
All right, now check out T-Bone Walker, giving a similar theme.
Someday, baby, I'll be 6 feet in the grave. Someday, baby, I'll be 6 feet in the grave. Then I won't be round here mistreated, darling, like a low-down dirty slave.
Biggie writes, I don't want to live no more. Sometimes I hear death knocking at my front door. I don't want to live no more. So he's thinking about himself not being here. The world's better off with him not here. And then T-Bone Walker writes, someday, baby, I'll be buried in the grave and I won't have to live like a low-down dirty slave. Right? 50 years later, both of these men just think it'd be better if I wasn't here, it would be better. I wouldn't have to live like a slave and I wouldn't have to deal with this stress. Biggie wrote lyrics in a song called Suicidal Thoughts. Quote, all my life I've been considered the worst, lying to my mother, even stealing out her purse. Crime after crime, from drugs to extortion. I bet my mother wish she got a fucking abortion. I mean, that's a lot to unpack, but it gives a sense of where his head was at, right? And T-Bone too. These are the mental shackles that come with generations of hate. These are the shackles that don't discriminate, no matter how rich or influential you become, right? For someone as gifted and influential as Biggie to take away from his life that he's nothing but a devil says a lot about our culture and how we treat the people within it. Sadly, that thought process is a daily operation for black people in America, living the duality of being black and trying to exist in a country that hates you. Du Bois spoke of the double consciousness in his classic, The Souls of Black Folk. Looking at yourself through the eyes of others, measuring your soul by the tape of a world that looks on in amused contempt and pity. The notorious B.I.G. was a poetic genius, a truly unique delivery with vivid storytelling abilities. He touched millions of people worldwide with just 2 albums. However, he was still forced to look at himself through the eyes of a country who did not value him. Heartthrob never, black and ugly as ever, he wrote. This is what he thought of himself. So the DNA is there and the themes, right? 50 years apart, these songs were written. 50 years apart, these songs were written. Both of these men at the top of their fields, the oppression was too much for them to think that they deserved to live, that they deserve to exist, right? Black lives matter. We say it now, but it's still hard to agree on, right? We say Black lives matter now, but that's one of the most controversial statements that exists. Both of these men reached the pinnacle of their industry, yet the everyday struggle was still real for them. The above lyrics were written in 2 totally different generations by seemingly 2 very different people. Doesn't it seem like they could have worked together? The continuity of theme is so strong because this music grew from the roots of the black experience. This music grew from field hollers and spirituals, the blues and jazz. This music grew from the Caribbean and Africa because the beat goes on. If you enjoyed this episode, look out for episode 2, where we discuss the history of the breakbeat and my theory that hip-hop is the ultimate manifestation of black music. It seems like in hip-hop and throughout black music, we always leave room for a breakdown. Hip-hop took this aspect and made it the foundation of everything, taking centuries of tradition and putting it on 2 turntables that changed the sound of music forever. See y'all next time. Peace. Check us out. Beats Times in Life Instagram, DJ Alias Music on YouTube, and you'll find all episodes archived.